Hello, Mr. Red here. Today is December 31st, 2019, New Year's Eve. And I decided I was going to go ahead and film a video today, one I've been wanting to do for really a long time. Been having a lot of requests for me to do this video, and I figured this time would be a great time to do it. The Abbey is shut down, there's nobody here, and I can do what I want to do for a long time, which is to show what I do at the Abbey and the cottage industries that are also here at the Abbey that other people work at. I know for a lot of people that have been following the channel for a long time that you're familiar with what I do, but for folks that are just coming on or haven't been watching for too long, they may have questions wondering as to what my function is, my role at the Abbey. Do I have a job? What do I do exactly? So just to clarify things as to my function, I'm a volunteer just like the other 100 and something volunteers here at the Abbey. We're just people that have an affection for the monks, and we donate our time and talent for their betterment. Because the Abbey is so diverse in the industries that are here, there's no way that the monks could supply the manpower necessary to run these businesses. So for that very reason, they are depending on volunteers to fill those slots. And they are just such great people that come up here and volunteer their time. So that's all I am, a volunteer. Of course, it would be impossible in one video to show you everything, but I do want to try to highlight some of the things, particularly at the church, with the artwork in the church, and just to give an overview of the daily life of here at the Abbey. It's like a little city because the campus, the whole campus, is about 1,200 acres, and of that 1,200 acres, there's probably 60 of it where is the campus itself, the buildings, the main buildings, the church, the monastery, the seminary college, and then all of the little industries that are around, that are used to support the monastery and the seminary college. So by the grace of God, I'm going to shoot some good video and give a good representation of what goes on here, and you'll come away with a better understanding of how things work here at the Abbey. Let's go wrangle up some video to show you what goes on up here. Now before I go, I just want to point out one little thing. You may notice directly behind me the activity that's going on a pollen feeder. These girls have been feeding on this pollen since I set it out, which was December 12th. So they are, as long as it'll warm up, they'll come out here and start feeding. And I do love coming out here and visiting with them. Let's go shoot some video, huh? I decided that we'd start our tour of our cottage industries here at the Woodworks because this is really where I spend most of my time. You would think that it's spending time with the bees, but in truth, I'm here at Woodworks most of the time. And even though I really like to be with the bees a lot more. But I began volunteering at the Abbey back in 2009, and at that time, the wood shop, well, it was just barely a little garage shop at that time. And since then, it's really grown into a really, really impressive business. Now, many of y'all have seen several of the videos that I've shot inside of the wood shop. So I'm not going to really focus on that when we go inside. Basically, I'm going to show you what we produce here inside the wood shop. So let's go inside and take a look. As you open the door and you walk inside, what most people notice immediately is just how clean this place is. It really is. It's just a very clean space, really easy to work, get around, and due to the fact that we have central dust system, this place is just pretty much clean. As we pass through the door into the showroom, there it is. This is what we produce here at the Woodworks. Caskets. A traditional casket and a monastic casket. The species of wood that we use, it's cypress. It's a native species to Louisiana, which is one of the reasons why it's chosen to represent the Abbey, because it is a local wood. And at one time, that's what caskets were built of here in Louisiana, was cypress. We also build urns. And you'll see the urns, there's two species of wood. A mahogany, the darker one, and then the cypress one right here. And you'll also notice there's two sizes of these urns. These are the urns that we originally, the size urns that we would build. And now this size right here, we just start building that because those will now fit two of those urns inside of the niches of our columbarium. And later on in the video, you'll see the columbariums that are now in place in the Abbey Cemetery. So this is what we build: urns and caskets. This is the entrance to the St. Joseph Abbey Retreat Center, and it looks a little dated, but inside it's very modern because of the flood, which happened 3 years ago. Because of that, the entire building was renovated on the interior of it. Let's go ahead inside and look and see what they got inside. Well, I see they're preparing for the next retreat that's coming in here. And you can see all the name tags. So as we go down the hall, past a conference room, let's go inside of it. Great lighting in here. Oh look, and there's one of our podiums that we built at the wood shop too. As we continue down the hall, we're going to be passing the chapel, the main chapel. Look at this, completely renovated, beautiful. Let's go on down the hall. And as we continue on, then we start getting to the wings where the rooms are, and these areas down here. And then as we continue on down, this is the main conference room right here. It's also the recreation room too. There's another one of our podiums that we built. And then at the other end of the hall, my favorite place, huh? The dining hall, or as they call it here, the refectory. And that's the other half of the building. Looking back down the other end of the hallway and back into the main conference room. So let's take a look inside one of these newly renovated rooms. Now there are 30 rooms inside of the retreat house, and they are all identical. It's like a hotel room. Guess what? These headboards and the little scotias above the wall hiding the light. We did all that at the wood shop. This is the bedroom. Boy, look at these bathrooms. Nice bathrooms. And then on the other side is a bed. It's a couch, but it does pull out to be a bed as well. So these are really nice, spacious rooms. They all have their own thermostats for your temperatures. What a great, great place to come on retreat. All right, let's visit a new place. And just down the road from the retreat house and the church, we're getting ready to walk into the cemetery. And the cemetery is a rather old one. It dates back all the way till when the monastery first came here in the early 1900s. But as old as cemetery and monastery is. This is brand new. They just installed these within the last 3 months. In fact, I don't believe there's only 2 or 3 niches even being used right now. And so this is going to be a really wonderful addition to the cemetery. So let's go back to the oldest part of the cemetery right now. Now this is the oldest part of the cemetery. And in this section right here, this is where the monks are buried. And they've had lots of monks have been buried in this cemetery. In fact, the big cross right there, that's where the first abbot is buried in there. And since I'm back here, I want to show you that we even have celebrities back here. That's right. Walker Percy. Walker Percy was a Benedictine oblate, and his love for the Abbey was one of the reasons why he's buried here. And his most famous work is The Moviegoer. And I just want to show you that. So Walker is buried there, and his wife is buried right next to him right here. All right, let's go over to that new section. Now here's all the new section, and this is a lot of ground that they've opened up because the cemetery is just growing so much. And as I swing the camera around, and you'll see these Chinese elm trees right here. Come September, these trees are just full of bees. Now that big live oak in the background right there, let me see if I can zoom in on it. That is one of the favorite places for people to be buried underneath. And as I leave the cemetery, we're going to go ahead and get a shot of that. Some of the grave sites underneath the live oak. And this is the largest live oak out at the Abbey right here. And then you can see the grave sites just underneath the limbs of it. Very, very, very desirable right here. All right, let's head over to the art studio. I have to give you a little background on this building right here. At one time, this building was the chicken coop, and they had literally thousands of chickens in here. Back when the monastery was raising cattle and pigs, it was a working farm, and this was their chicken coop building. So let's go inside there and see what they're doing inside of the Abbey artworks. Alright, so here we are on the inside, and it's still a work in progress. This picture right here is a picture of Gregory Dewitt, who painted all the murals here at the Abbey, inside the church, refectory, and all around the area. And I will get you inside of the church and we'll show you what he has done. In fact, that picture this picture of is the picture of Christ, which is in the top of the sacristy. And on this one wing, they have the office right in here. And then on the other side is the real workshop. And they've got, they rent out spaces during the week. And so this is the studio now. And they have some people in here working. Beautiful. Nice, and it smells good in here too. These walls, remember I told you the monks built a lot of things. Well, this whole chicken coop is made out of cypress. And these are some beautiful cypress boards and beams in here. Who wouldn't want to work in here? All right, let's check out something else. Now before we go inside Monk Soap, I had to shoot this door right here, take a picture of this door, because this door is one of the original doors on the monastery. And in the entrance to the monastery, it was a pair of these doors in there. And at the flood, yeah, they got kind of ruined. So they were restored, and now they're being repurposed. And this door right here was then put onto the new building of Monk Soap. Let's go ahead inside and see what we got going on in here. So let's go ahead and take a walk to the business end of the Monk Soap operation. And as we get to the back part right here, these doors are where all the materials are brought into this through these doors. And some of the materials, it's rice oil, there's some coconut oil, there's lye right there, and some vegetable oil and shea butter. And there's some more olive oil right there. So all these materials are weighed, and from their being weighed, they're brought over to the kettle right here where they're mixed, melted down. And then once all those materials are melted down, I know they come over here, mix the lye and the distilled water. They bring it back to the kettle, mix it in there, and then from the kettle, then it's pretty cool. They just pour the mixture into the pot, and then that pot is then lifted up and brought to the mixer, and then it's mixed up. Then from the mixer, once the whole mixture is mixed, they'll come over to the table right here, and they've got several of these boards will be set up, and they'll fill the boards with the soap. And then once it's filled, they'll cover it again and then put the foam board on top of it. Like that. And then they'll let it sit for 24 hours. Now, once it comes out of the 24 hours later, then they'll bring it back to the other room, and let's walk back there and I'll show you what's going on back there. Now once that soap is poured and dried, it's been 24 hours, they'll bring those blocks of soap into this room, and then they'll set them on that shelf right there. There's nothing on the shelf right now because Christmas time, and I mean they just sold out of everything. But they'll put it on the shelf, it dries for a few days longer, I believe, and then from there it goes into the cutting station right here. This is another thing that we made at the shop. And they take the slabs and they put the whole slab in, they push it this way and the Y's in there, slice it that way, put that block in there, and they slice and push it, and then they'll slice the bars this way. So I think they come out with 25 bars from each block. And then once those bars are cut, they'll be placed on these shelves right here where they're dried some more. And then once they're dried there, they go on to the other shelf right here where they dry more, I believe, and then to this one, which will then be wrapped. And so then you finally get your wrapped soaps. And yeah, you can see this, it's very low right now. Usually these things are just full. So they also make candles in the soap department. That's their melter right there, the wax melter. And they use soy primarily. And look, here's Kay's got all this stuff set out for me. Here's one of the candles that they make right here. And right now they're using all soy, but we are going to be adding the Abbee Honey wax to the mixture as well, because we want to be able to say that we're using Abbey wax in our candles as well. And so these are some of the apparatus that they use to center and hold the wicks up. I don't know very much about this stuff, but I am going to do a video on this, so y'all can stay tuned for that. Now, in this very impressive looking old building houses monk suites. And it was a slave quarters at one time when this was a plantation. It was one of the slave quarters, and it is the last remaining building on the Abbey property, at least in this good of condition from that time period. But inside of it, it's been over the years been used for many things, and now it is now home of monk suites. Now there is no sign designating it as monk suites, so you'll just have to take my word for it. This is monk suite. So let's go ahead inside and look what's inside of there. And on this side of the house, this is where the beginnings of it. And I don't know a whole lot about this operation, but what I do know is that he makes the mixture is out of peanuts, sugar, and salt. Very simple, and it's a Brazilian treat. And Brother Leo, who runs this operation, he's also in the gift shop, he does this operation. Of course, he's got a lot of volunteers too. So they're ground up right here, and then once all that mixture is ground up, they have a little press unit that we built over at the shop that they will press the candies into that shape. Once they're pressed into that shape, put it on a tray, and then they're carried over into the next room right here, where they are then packaged. So they bring them down to this end, they package, they then seal the package, and then they label it. And this is what the final product looks like. Bliss with a twist. All right, let's head over to the bakery and see what they do over there. Here's our next stop on our tour of the cottage industries here at the Abbey, the bakery. And the program at the bakery is called Pennies for Bread. And as you can guess from the name of the title of the business, they bake bread here. And the aspect of Pennies for Bread is the whole business, the entire business, is supported by donations. And so they solicit sponsors to support this program, and those sponsors then pay for all the goods that they do, all the goods that are used to produce the bread. And the monks, along with the volunteers, supply the labor to make that bread. They make over 1,200 loaves in the 2 days that they work. They work on a Monday and Thursday, and their day begins at 3 in the morning. So they bake a lot of bread. Let's go ahead inside and see what the equipment they use and how it looks inside. Now, I spent many mornings inside of this building helping the monks bake the bread as well as make the dough. On this side right here is where they keep all their dry flours, their yeast, sugars, and then they mix the dry mix in this area right here. And after they mix it, they bring it over to the mixers, and then it whips all that flour and water and sugar and oil, all that together, and they make big, like 55 pounds of bread dough at a time. And then they'll take that bread dough and they'll throw it up on the counter right here. That's a terrible expression. They set the dough on this table right here, and then they start breaking it up into 1.5 pound loaves. They weigh each one of the loaves, and you can see there's the mark right here. They stop 1.5, and they'll cut out 50 pieces of dough from that big ball of dough, that 50-something pound of dough. And they'll stack all those pieces right here. After those pieces set for a little while and start rising, they'll throw them through the roller right there, and that roller will then spin the dough, and it'll come out in a long tube at this end, and then they'll place those long pieces of dough on this table right here and allowed to rise. Once they're risen to the right amount, they start putting them in the pans right there. Now they have a lot of pans in here. And once they're in the pans, they'll go into the proofers right here, and they can hold a lot of bread in here. So there's 4 racks in here, and I think there's 50 pans on each one of these racks. So that's 200 loaves of bread each time they load this thing up. And they pull these things out in timed increments, and then they'll roll the whole tray inside of the oven right here. And then that oven will then bake the bread. I think it's about 18 minutes. And then once the timer goes off, they pull it out, box the tray out, they bring it over here, and then they start separating the bread from the pans on that tray right here. And then they load the bread onto these trays right here, and then take the hot bread and they bring it to this room over here and let it cool. Now, you may have noticed this line of chairs on the wall. So there is a lot of downtime in this operation, waiting for the bread to rise, whether it's on the table or in the oven or just baking. So volunteers get a lot of time to sit down and talk, and they always have coffee and food over here, so it's a good thing. So once the bread has been cooled on this end, that's the work for the monks and the volunteers at this end. Then the next shift comes in around 10, 11 in the morning, and they start cutting the bread. And there's usually about 6 or 8 men and women in here. They slice the bread on the slicer and bag it, and then put it on in those containers right there. They put the loaves of bread in there, and then those are then brought to the shelters or wherever they need to be directed to. So that's a basic tour of the cottage industries here at the Abbey. But the principal building at the Abbey, well, the monastery itself, the monastery and the church. And this building right here, this building was built in 1908. They had a fire. Most monasteries, a lot of monasteries have burnt down, and this one was no exception. Theirs burnt down in 1908. They built this big structure right here. And in this building, this is where the monks live. They have their meals in a separate building behind this refectory. And these places, I can't bring the camera to show you that, so I'm sorry I can't do that. But at times, they are open for tours for the public to go to, but this isn't one of those. So we're going to close this video with not going into the monastery, but we are going into the church, because I've got to show you the artwork in this church by the Benedictine monk Gregory Dewitt. Let's go inside the church and see what he's done. that wraps up this video. Hope y'all enjoyed the tour, and I hope y'all got a little better insight of what goes on here at the Abbey. So thanks for watching. Keep on watching. I'll be making more. God bless. Mr. Ed, I'm out of here until next year.